Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I'm not Tom Mills, but I am Bruce, and today I'm joined by Cal Wing.
Hello.
And long-time friend of the pod, and our very first guest, actually, Lukas Michel.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to having a little chat today.
As always, you can get in touch with us at Cookie Jar Golf. That's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also on YouTube, where we just posted a recent story of a golf club on Cleve Hill. So we'd urge you to check that out. Get behind the petition. It's a fantastic old Tom design. And yeah, as ever, get in touch, comment, like, subscribe. Lukas, long time no speak. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I've been well. I've just been chilling in the US for the last sort of 6 weeks or so. Got here in, well, it's probably longer now. It's probably 9 weeks. I got here in early August. So yeah, I've been chilling. Obviously, I've had a few things happen, as your listeners might be aware, but yeah, played a couple tournaments. So yeah, just been having a good time, and yeah, sort of now got some time off to relax. I'm in Detroit at the minute and learning some golf course architecture stuff, which is a bit different. So yeah, all's well with me.
Yeah, so I guess winding it back to the last time we spoke, you were just getting ready for Augusta. We thought it was going to be the usual April Masters. And I think you're out in the States at that point. You were maybe playing a couple of amateur events. Were you playing the Augusta Amateur and just getting prepared? I mean, how did that all, when the lockdown and restrictions came in back in March, I mean, I guess that took everyone by surprise, but how did it sort of affect you? Were you, I guess, on the plane back to Oz pretty quickly and just sort of doing lockdown over there?
Yeah, so when we last spoke, I think I'd either just got over to the States or I was just coming back. I can't remember. But basically, yeah, I was, what happened was in March, I went over to Augusta, prepping sort of some early preparation for the Masters. Ended up getting to Augusta National and finding out that the Masters was postponed on the very same day I got there. So arrived for some early practice and then realized it was just going to be a fun weekend and I was there to enjoy it rather than do any sort of serious reconnaissance. But my caddy, Will Davenport, and we had a good time, had a good weekend, stayed at Butler Cabin and played the courses a few times. And then after that, I really had to hop on a plane pretty much straight away back home. I was planning to play the Azalea Amateur, which is country club at Charleston. That was going to be a really good event, but that got cancelled. And so, yeah, I just hopped on a plane back home early. When was it? Maybe the 21st or 20th of March, and had to quarantine when I got back, just because obviously the virus was really kind of spreading and growing at that point. Quarantined for 2 weeks, at home, doing nothing, didn't touch a club, set up a little net in my backyard and was able to hit a few shots and basically only work on really technical stuff. And then by the time I'd finished my quarantine, golf had been banned in the state of Victoria and in Melbourne. So, yeah, I couldn't play golf properly after that either. So it was just basically hitting a bunch of balls in a net in my backyard, working on some technical stuff. My friend runs an indoor practice facility, so he lent me one of his TrackMan units and was able to hit some balls with that. But there's nothing like seeing ball flight. A screen's fine, but when you can see it, flying through the air, it's always a little bit better. But that was good to kind of work on some technical stuff. I had some opportunities to make some, I feel like, positive technical changes. But yeah, it was a long sort of 8 weeks without playing a golf hole. And finally golf reopened in about May, and I was able to go back out and practice and play. And, it's the depth of winter for Melbourne, which a Melbourne winter is not anything like a European or American winter, but, there's some miserable days. So it wasn't most pleasant conditions to play golf in, but it was golf, and I really enjoyed it. Playing in twos, they were limiting us to twos, and the rounds were really fast, and it was kind of cool. And then we actually got locked down again in August. So that was just before I was heading back to the US, because at that point the Masters and the US Open got rescheduled, and I figured out that I should come over as well for the US Amateur. And so I headed over on August 6th, and golf had just been banned in Melbourne again. So they had a big spike in cases over there. So they'd stopped golf. So I came over August 6th and kind of off pretty limited practice and certainly limited competitive practice and play. Hadn't really played a tournament since March. So, the USAM was my sort of first event coming in.
And that was straight into Bandon Dunes.
It was, yeah. So Bandon's awesome. I mean, for the tournament we played. What was that? Sorry, Bruce?
So it lives up to the sort of expectation and the kind of hype that people give it?
I think so. For me, obviously it's as scenic as anywhere in the world. I mean, we played... So for the tournament, we had like a little fun thing on the par 3 course, the Preserve. That was like a kind of like a introductory sort of round where you got paired up with a couple other players, but it was not really a practice round of anything. And then played the tournament on the Trails course and the Bandon Dunes course. So they were the 2 stroke play courses. And yeah, I mean, they're incredible, both those golf courses. Trails is Core Crenshaw, Dunes is the original David McClay kids. So really fun golf courses. Conditions can be really difficult if the wind gets up, and I probably got a bit of a typical links draw where I caught the wind on one side and then got the wind on the other as well. So I think the afternoon I played the first round, the USGA put out a stat. It was playing 3.5 strokes harder if you're on that side of the draw than if you're on the other. So ended up missing the cut by 3 shots. So I could chalk a bit of it down to that. I definitely didn't play my best, but I did get definitely a little bit of a tougher draw. But yeah, after I got knocked out, didn't make match play, I ended up hanging around and played Pacific Dunes, Old MacDonald, and had a walk around Sheep Ranch, which is the new Core Crenshaw course there. So got a little taste of what Bandon's like. And, you know, I was in the bubble for the first, they created like a tournament bubble for the first sort of few days I was there. But once you got knocked out, you could kind of do whatever you wanted. I kind of had at it and went out and played all the other courses.
Did you have Will on the bag, or were you carrying yourself, or did you have a local caddy? Or
not for the amateur. No, I just sort of carried my own bag. I probably could have got Will out there. That would have been a cool experience, but you know, it's a long way to go for him. And it's sort of, we were going to be spending plenty of time together later on in the year. So it was sort of just by myself, carried my own bag. Didn't hire a caddy, so I didn't have to worry about them scratching the surface on a bunker.
Yeah, making sandcastles.
Crazy. Couldn't believe that. But yeah, it was still awesome. That last day I was there, I ended up playing Pacific Dunes and Old MacDonald the same day, and then I walked around Sheep Ranch as well that very same day. So I think I walked 54 holes of golf, and I felt dead. I should have taken a caddy probably one of the first 2 rounds, but it was still pretty fun.
Made the most of it.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
Good.
And so after that, was it kind of moving over to the East Coast and prep kind of began in earnest for your first major at the US Open at Wingfoot?
Yeah, I slowly sort of made my way over to the East Coast, but I've got some family friends in Wyoming, so they're sort of like Jackson Hole area, and they were wanting to have me in their town for ages. So it's a really beautiful place, Jackson Hole. It's like right at the sort of base of the Teton Mountains, and there's a good course there called Shooting Star that he's a member of. So stayed with them, hung out with them, played a bunch of golf in that area. Funnily enough, Adam Scott was apparently there 2 days before I got there, which I didn't even realise, which was pretty funny. I think he said his AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am partner was like the guy he's always paired with some member there or something like that and wanted to have him out there. So that was kind of cool. He apparently shot an easy 63. I didn't quite shoot that when I was there, but it's a nice golf course. And then after that, I went over to Detroit, actually. So I've been spending a lot of my time in Detroit because basically because I'm like a design associate for Mike Clayton in Australia, and Mike Clayton's partnered with Mike DeVries in CDP Golf, Clayton DeVries Pont. Basically, Mike Clayton lined up for me to sort of do a bit of work experience, internship kind of stuff with DeVries out here in Bloomfield Hills in Michigan. So, yeah, it's a Harry Colt original design, the only solo Harry Colt design in America, and it's being restored by Mike DeVries. So pretty big project. I think it's $4 or $5 million budget. So it's a decent enough project to kind of watch a lot of stuff happening and learn a lot. And I've got little to no construction experience. So but it's obviously something I'm really interested in. And it's a good way to kind of fill in some time because if I wanted to go back to Melbourne, I'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks in a hotel and have to pay for that myself. So it's like just didn't make sense to return to Australia. So it's good to be able to spend some time in the US, and not costing myself a fortune because I'm sort of staying with Mike and that. So it's really good and learning a lot while I'm here. So did that for 3 weeks or so before the US Open, and pulled out a shovel and dug a few bunkers and rode on a bulldozer and tried to learn how to use one of those and raked some, did everything basically and gave myself a few blisters and then, a good core workout when I was shoveling. So probably helped.
Perfect S&C, yeah.
Yeah, get out of that thick wingfoot rough was the plan. But that was sort of my lead into the US Open, and obviously was able to practice at the course as well because they had a few holes open and parts of the practice facilities. So I was still able to work on my game, but I kind of filled in the time as well, sort of learning some hands-on construction stuff.
I bet that was quite a welcome distraction from because it's probably such a thing as over preparation or just sort of thinking about the US Open constantly for the 3-week build up. And
yeah, ideally I probably would have liked to have found some tournaments to play in, but I mean there just kind of wasn't anything on, and it worked really well that I was able to do something productive in that 3 to 4 week period. It's been awesome. And then, so I headed to Wingfoot Thursday before tournament week, or to New York area Thursday before tournament week, and got a little golf in, played Sleepy Hollow Country Club, which is amazing. Played there on the Friday before having my COVID test, and then got COVID tested, and then you enter the bubble and you basically got to kind of be sensible in kind of keeping safe and socially distant and do all the right things. So after that, it was just sort of, business.
I assume you're literally locked in this bubble as soon as you enter the arena.
It was definitely a bubble, but it wasn't as strict as the Bandon one. So the Bandon one for the amateur, we had to stay in one of the required sort of accommodations. So there was 2 or 3 hotels, and including the Bandon lodging as well. So they were a bit stricter on those ones at Bandon, just because I guess they could kind of force us into one spot, whereas the pros, they kind of do whatever they want. So we could stay in private housing, and so I actually stayed with a Wingfoot member who was volunteering for the week, and so he'd been tested, and I knew that he was safe, and they were fine with that. So we stayed about 10 minutes from the course, and it was really, really good where we stayed. And so, yeah, got there on Saturday, got tested, got my negative result, and then could go and practice. And Saturday I went and walked the course with my caddy, Will, and had a fit for the new Titleist driver, actually, which is really good, and actually put that in play because I was hitting it.
Really?
Picked up
Straight in the back.
Yeah, picked up 4 miles per hour ball speed. So that was pretty good over the Mizuno I was using, which I was happy with the Mizuno, but this thing was just so much hotter. And in terms of accuracy, they felt pretty similar. So put that in play, and and then went and walked the front 9 that evening, and sun was sort of setting, and it was just like surreal, like to be there and experiencing something I'd waited probably longer than I'd expected to. And it was really serene and cool to have that little walk around with Will. And then
got me correct if I'm wrong, Lucas, but you went out and saw Winged Foot last year, 2019, back into 2019. How did the course compare on, when you first saw it on that Saturday just before tournament week kind of began in earnest? Were you struck by any, major changes to the course? Was the rough, much, much thicker, or did it seem to be playing much different to how you'd envisaged it?
I think it was pretty similar to what I expected, which was very different to what I'd played in the past. So like when I played it, it was 2018, middle of 2018. When I played it then, they obviously didn't have the rough up, and it was, pretty sensible kind of setup. And then that first walk around it, like the first thing I noticed is like, can't see my shoes when I'm standing in the rough. Like it's so long. And like it's a legitimate struggle to walk through the rough if you're not on like the little, short grass tee walk area, like between the tee and the fairway. So that rough was serious business. It was so thick. So yeah, that was the main thing. Other than that, I mean, there was probably a couple fairways that looked a touch narrow where you could say they'd pinched them in. So like the 6th, which is a short par 4, I think maybe the 11th and the 12th got pinched in a little bit as well. But in general, it was sort of the same golf course, just with thicker rough. But yeah, it was like really thick though. But yeah, I mean, certainly walking around it the first time, it was a little bit confronting, knowing that like, geez, the fairways are this narrow, and a lot of the time the fairway like turns as well at an angle, and it's got a bit of slope in it. So even though they're 25 yards wide, they play like 10 yards wide. I mean, yeah, it was a bit confronting looking at the golf course, but I kind of knew that, straight away I could tell like someone will still play pretty reasonable around here. Like, the best players in the world, they're pretty damn good. So I kind of expected around even par to win. I didn't think Bryson shooting 6. I didn't think 6 under was probably on the cards, but maybe a couple under if someone played really well. But it was obviously very different to a normal kind of Winged Foot setup.
And I guess before we jump into the experience or your experience of playing in your first major, from a sort of maybe a slightly detached kind of course architecture standpoint, because you're fascinated by that stuff as we all are. I mean, what do you think to Winged Foot from that point of view? Is it a golf course that it can be accessible for more players, and they just do a great job during the US Open of making it challenging for the best players in the world? Or I mean, how do you see it in general?
I mean, the green complexes there are so cool. I mean, they're so wild. The fact that they were built in I should know the date, but it was, early 1900s with pretty, basic equipment, potentially horses. I actually don't know the details, but, horses with a blade or basic machinery. Like, it's pretty impressive how much dirt would have been moved to create those. And then the fact that they're just so intricate as well. Like, I can't imagine how much time and energy they spent building those greens. They're just incredible. So I think the fact that the greens are so interesting would just make it a fun golf course to play day in, day out. Certainly, I think, with that setup, how it was, with that thickness of rough, your average 10, 15, 20 handicap is not going to have a good time playing that golf course. Particularly,
no.
I mean, the rough is kind of okay for someone like me. Like I can hack something out, but for anyone with a swing speed with driver under 100 miles per hour, like I just don't think they'd have the strength to get like anything, any sort of recovery out of that sort of rough. But, you know, it's set up for a US Open, and in a way, the setup was kind of funny. Like people always talk about narrow fairways, you know, that takes out the strategy of driving the ball, because basically you're just aiming at the middle of a narrow fairway. The funny thing was, because the fairways were narrow but the rough was so thick, if you were on the wrong side of the fairway, the wrong side of the hole, the teeing, kind of the driving zone in the rough, you had absolutely zero chance of hitting the green. But if you're on the correct side of the driving zone in the rough, you could run one up just because of the way the greens were angled. So there was actually almost more strategy for someone like me than there would be on a course where the fairways are really wide, where I can hit it anywhere on the fairway and still stick it on the green and able to spin it. So it's kind of funny that, you know, having such thick rough on narrow fairways in a way kind of made the tee ball a bit more strategic, which is kind of, people never sort of talk about that, but that's just kind of what the setup did, which was kind of, I only realized that like kind of as I was thinking in my way about how I'm going to play each hole, I was like, geez, I'm actually having to think about lines off the tee here, which a lot more than I normally would if the fairways were narrow. You know, in those cases, I've just got a perfect lie on the fairway no matter which angle I'm coming in from, and I'm able to stop it on a green. So in that way, it was kind of strategic off the tee, which was interesting.
Well, I think Bryson talked about it actually in his interview after he won. He basically said, you know, Eastlake neutralized his advantage off the tee because you couldn't really run a ball in. The greens were so well guarded at the front. So, you know, there was no point in him trying to hit driver and accepting that he'd miss a few fairways, because even with a shorter club in his hands, he just wouldn't be able to stick a green. But at Wingfoot, as you say, there's maybe quite a few openings there where even if you're coming out the rough, provided your lie is not terrible, you might be able to sort of chase one in, or at least chase one close enough to the green that you'll be able to get it up and down.
You saw him playing that sort of punch gouge, like so often. He was like a wedge or a 9, and he could literally, as you say, he's missed on the right side to literally gouge it out and run it up.
Yeah, a lot of the greens at Wingfoot are open at the front. I mean, pretty much all of them, if you're on the correct side of the fairway. So, yeah, I guess that strategy worked. The funny thing, obviously, like everyone talked about, you know, Bryson's strategy, that'll never work at a US Open. Well, like, you couldn't have got a more typical US Open in terms of the setup with long rough at Wingfoot on a very tough golf course, and it worked perfectly, that strategy, which is, you know,
I mean, especially the Sunday, he was literally it was a running commentary with exactly what he was doing or how unlucky that shot was. I couldn't have played it any better. And to be fair, you didn't need a commentary team there because he was just doing it all.
Yeah,
it was fair play to him.
Yeah, I was watching it in person, so I didn't watch it on TV. I was following the back nine in person because they allowed us to walk around, and that was a pretty cool experience, actually.
That's a nice touch. Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
So going back to the start of the week, practice rounds and I guess the mounting sort of expectation. How did all of that come to pass? How do you kind of navigate those few days leading up to your opening tee shot? Who do you play with? And what was that kind of experience like?
Yeah, so I managed to line up a practice round. It was on the Friday with Adam Scott, and so I lined it up on the Friday, but it was funny because I talked to a reporter from Australia who knew Adam Scott. I've never met him, didn't have his details, nothing. And so the reporter got in touch with Adam, and Adam actually texted me Friday morning, but I didn't see it for like 14 hours. So like I've basically left Scotty just hung and dry, and eventually replied that evening. I was like, oh, sorry, Adam didn't say this. Thanks. It'd be great to play. So we ended up playing on Monday. But I played Sunday with Sung Jae Im, which was cool.
Oh yeah,
he's a superstar.
We saw the photo.
That's right. That was a famous photo. So for those that haven't seen it, it was us we played 9 with him. So we're standing on the 9th green, and we gave Sung Jae the kind of I don't know how you describe it, but
the big ball,
the big balls, because that Honda Classic, I think it's 15th hole there, where he basically aimed it straight at the pin. Actually, went right at the pin between the water and the pin, and Mackenzie Hughes gave it the big ball kind of. Did
he get the joke? Because from the photo, his face just looks like completely.
Well, I don't know. It was kind of funny. I think we were like, oh, Sung Jae, like we need a photo, and then so we got the photo, and then we were like, oh, one more, and then we like did it, and like after we did it, he was like, ha ha ha, like and he said like something like, I didn't even see him do it when it happened.
Okay.
Because like if you look at the video, like, but yeah, he knew what we were doing, so it was good with it. And his caddy was a really cool guy, like an American guy that kind of couldn't stop laughing as soon as we did it. So yeah, he was loving it. So played 9 with Sung Jae, and then that was really cool. He flushed it. His iron play was unbelievable. I actually didn't see where he finished. I can't remember if he made the cut, but yeah, he flushed it, and then played 9 with Cantlay pretty much straight after. We went in for lunch, and then funnily enough, like was like on my phone at lunch and saw that Tiger had just teed off on 10, and I was like thinking, wow, did I leave and then Tiger like take the time that I was leaving for? Because Tiger and Bryson teed off like literally as I walked off the 9th green, but turns out they'd teed off maybe 10 minutes before, so I would have been playing behind Tiger and Bryson, which would have been pretty cool. But I thought maybe for a minute there that I'd missed a potential tee time with Tiger, which would have been pretty cool. But yeah, got paired with Cantlay for 9. He was standing on the 10th tee when I got there and joined him, and he was a really interesting guy. Very quiet and like kind of introverted, but also like we talked about some stuff, and super like intelligent, well read, like clearly like reads a lot about lots of different stuff. Because I told him I was from Melbourne, and then he knew all about Melbourne and how we've been going through this lockdown, and like obviously all over sort of world news sort of stuff. So yeah, that was cool to sort of chat with him and watch him play. He's so good, like, but kind of not that impressive, but just really good. Like I was probably a little longer than him, and he everything he does looks a bit awkward, but it's just
very steady.
His misses are just so small.
Yeah,
he just does that well. So that was cool to watch as well. To know that someone that's like a top 10 player in the world doesn't actually look that impressive is kind of crazy, but that's kind of what it was.
So yeah, quite different to Sung Jae in terms of the sort of ball striking and like
I don't know what it was about Sung Jae. Like he just kept hitting these 5 irons to like 3 feet. Like
I mean that'll do it, to be fair.
Yeah, like on the third would have been longer. I think it was like a hybrid. He hit on the third to like 5 feet, and then he on 5, which is the dogleg left, converted par 5 to par 4. He literally hit a 5 iron to like 3 feet. Probably just a small sample size thing. He probably just hit 3 flush shots, 2 or 3 flush shots, but it just was like, wow, this guy's so good. And then so that was Sunday, and then Monday was the round with Adam Scott, which was awesome as well. And he's a really nice guy, sort of quiet and reserved, but start kind of talking about stuff that he's passionate about, and he opens up, and we're talking about aim point for a bit because I do that as well. And it was cool to play with Scotty, another Aussie, obviously, and we're also played with Ryo Ishikawa, who's like the coolest guy ever. Really fun guy. And Curtis Luck, who's a friend of mine. I went to the same high school as he did, so he's a couple of years younger, but that was a really fun round. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, I just played by myself, which was cool as well. Like, Tuesday, I think I pretty much had the first tee time, so I went out there really early. And then Wednesday just played 9 in the afternoon, and sort of had the day like a sort of a light day to kind of make sure I felt sort of rested for round 1, I guess.
Awesome. And then in terms of going through your practice rounds, it's probably a really nauseous question, but I'm going to ask it. In terms of any major club changes, are you flicking between 3 or 4 wedges, or a 2-iron, or a hybrid, or changing anything there? Or
I actually, I picked up a hybrid actually, because I'd never used a hybrid, but a friend of mine was like, you got to use a hybrid because they're great out of the rough. And I probably used it 3 or 4 times in the tournament out of the thick rough. And that was actually pretty useful. Because I had a 3-iron kind of driving irony thing, but that was horrible out of the rough. This thing was a really good pickup. So I did use that, which was, really, really useful. So that was a good one.
Tempted to give it a nudge around the greens as well, bit of a Todd.
I probably should have done the hybrid around the greens on my last hole of the second round, because I made a double bogey from like one of those ones where it's sitting up against the collar, and the hybrid there probably would have been a smart choice, but I tried to putt it and just smashed it past.
And then we can't forget the flag bag either. Take it out.
That is a good pickup. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, the flag bag, which was definitely turned a few heads. Shout out to Josh Smith and his brother Matt, who own the company Flag Bag and started this year. So if anyone hasn't seen them, they're pretty damn cool.
They are very cool.
I got one it's got my home club Metropolitan flags. Basically, they're made from flags from flag sticks. So I got my home club flag sticks and a couple of flag sticks from the US Mid Amateur on them, and they're all kind of tied together with sort of like a camel leather and white leather little thing. So it looks awesome. And yeah, definitely, like, there was a few guys that saw it, and Ian Poulter was loving it. He walked past one of those. Yeah. I need one of them, and and my caddy will love it too because it weighs nothing. he was loving it, and a bunch of players just mentioned it as I walked past, so that was pretty cool.
Did you have a backup in the locker in case the weather came in? Or?
I did. I had a backup, fully waterproofed Mizuno bag in case the weather turned, but thankfully it stayed dry. So yeah, I think the second day it was like 25% chance of rain, and I was like it's right on the cusp of whether I should, and I was like, nah, screw it, I'll use it. But I did have it in the locker room, so if we had to get it out at the turn, we could kind of do it. But yeah, luckily we didn't have to.
So opening tee shot, and I guess actually just the tournament in general, what were the kind of emotions that you went through there? I mean, I know you mentioned that besides the US Am, you hadn't really had much kind of competitive golf since March time. Having said that, was this like a kind of whole new level of intensity and, I don't know, nervous excitement that you were feeling as you were playing and stepping on that first tee? Like, what were the sort of emotions?
Yeah, I was definitely like very nervous. I got the late early draw, so I played sort of midday first round and early the second round, which probably lends itself to me feeling a bit more nervous, because you've got all morning to think about hitting that first tee shot. So I remember that morning kind of waking up, like kind of not wanting to eat too much, like just feeling just the nerves in the stomach. And I do a little bit of like mindfulness meditation stuff, some like self-guided kind of meditation stuff. So I did like a little bit of that at the place I was staying before I left, and then I did it again in the locker room briefly. But I actually
Sam Harris.
Yeah. Once I got to the course though and started hitting some balls and into my sort of pre-round routine, I was pretty fine. Like, I just had a set regimen that I always do before a competition round, and so it didn't feel, once I was in that routine, it didn't feel like anything crazy, except I'd look to my right and it's Dustin Johnson or something. But it didn't feel that crazy. But I felt like I'd managed to block it out pretty well, all the excitement, sort of nervousness, energy, pretty well. And I actually nailed my first tee shot. Like, I just drilled it down the fairway. I was definitely nervous, but Had a
Nearly
really good
dunked
drive.
the approach as well for Eagles.
Yeah, and then
we saw the first hole. They had your coverage, which was great.
Yeah, I bombed this driver. Like I hit it way further than I expected. So I actually ran through the fairway, and then I hit a wedge into. I mean, it hit the other guy in my group's ball, but like it almost would have gone in. It went to a foot. So it was a nice way to start with a birdie. That was Lucas Herbert. Yeah, his ball was nestled in close, and I hit his on the way in. So sort of a funny sort of pairing with three Aussies, which also in a way helped make me a little bit more comfortable, I suppose, for the day. And then I nailed one down the second hole as well, and I'm not going to bore you with all the holes, but I played pretty solidly on the front nine, and then I think I got kind of burnt out by the back nine. I was like, I kind of almost lost my intensity. Like the first few, I was like so kind of focused and intense that I think I just burned myself out. And I think that's the kind of week that it is as well. Like it's a big week. There's a lot going on. And I just kind of, the back nine just feels like a blur. Like I hardly remember what happened. Like just kept making stupid mistakes and silly chips and, and then on 18, there's a shot length. You can basically see the shot length of my tee shot on 18. But last hole of the day, I've hit a branch in the chute there. It's a pretty tight chute, the 18th tee shot. But I've hit a bad drive, and it's just caught this branch and gone straight backwards and left to the back of the 17th green. So it went a total of 66 yards on shot link, which wasn't ideal, and made a nice triple up the last. So, yeah, it was a pretty average way to end the day, but it was still a fun US Open experience with a few highlights, like chipped in on 7 and birdie on 1. So there was some good parts of the day.
Yeah, we got coverage of the first hole, almost holing out with the second shot. We got coverage of the chip in. In fact, I think I just got in from wherever I'd been that day, and you had a complete pot luck. You're pretty much teeing off, and I think I actually videoed.
WhatsApp just exploded, didn't it?
I videoed the TV with your second shot almost going in, rewinding it just to our little cookie jar WhatsApp group, going. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been nice to keep that trend going. A couple more birdies. I think I actually that's funny because I remember looking at the leaderboard behind the first green. I was tied 8th after one hole because I was 1 under. So I can say I was tied 8th at the US Open through 1 hole though.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess looking back on the week, and I guess maybe the practice rounds in general, that you played with some great players there. Do you look back on that week and say, I'm actually pretty damn close to being able to compete with the best players in the world? There's maybe a couple of areas I need to sharpen up, or is there an area of game where you're like, yeah, that's something I want to address and kind of fix? Like, what are the kind of key takeaways from the US Open? Yeah,
I think the second round for me was like a bit more kind of promising in that I kind of saw that I made a bunch of mistakes. I didn't play my best. Like I made a double bogey on the last from greenside for 2, which is it's a par 5. I'd normally, even with the lie I had, I'd normally get up and down 50% of the time and probably make par 50% of the time. So birdie or par, and I ended up making double, just messed it up. So if I'd shot 74 or 75 that second round, playing what I felt was pretty average, that would have beaten the average score for the day. And I was like, that kind of tells me that I feel like I'm not that far off it, despite, shooting, I was DFL, like first round, I think I was either tied dead last or DFL. And then second round, I kind of played again, really average, and then kind of made up a few spots. But basically that second round kind of showed me, okay, like maybe I'm not that far off it. Definitely after the first round, I was pretty disappointed with everything, but the second round certainly gave me a little bit more promise. And yeah, I think given that I had pretty ordinary preparation for the events, I played one big event in the previous 6 months, which was the US Amateur, and all those guys are playing week in, week out.
Definitely.
In that sort of those sort of pressure and that sort of stage, like all the time. I think I think had I had a more normal preparation and had I actually played reasonably well and not hit it so poorly, I certainly think I could have made the cut. And potentially, you know, if I played really well, you know, come somewhere in the top sort of 30 or 20 if I just played decent. So I didn't come away like too kind of shocked by their ability compared to mine. I definitely felt like if there's one area that I need to improve, it is my ball striking. I'm just constantly trying to chase getting better there because those guys, they're really, really good. But I feel like my putting and short game and recovery plays actually kind of there with them. It's just, it's just mainly the ball striking. And I mean, look at the best players in the world, Dustin Johnson, Roy McIlroy, and those guys, I mean, they're just flushes, basically. And if I want to be at that level, that's where I got to get.
And is that just a case of they just hitting sort of one shape out there and it's just on a rope pretty much the whole time? Their windows are really, really tight? Or is it, I mean, are they knocking it in close all the time? Like how? I think, what's it like sort of outside of Burma?
Yeah, I mean, each of them are probably a little bit different, but watching Cantlay, it was like his bad shot was like just into the rough, whereas my bad shot's like 20 yards into the rough. So they just got tighter misses, I think, in general. And just sort of being able to manage the club face and be a bit more consistent with that. Because my path numbers, like on a TrackMan, are super consistent. It's just my face control is just wild generally. So I just need to tighten that up and sort of some technical stuff, and it's some just practice and kind of skill stuff as well.
I guess the coolest thing is you get another chance at the Masters.
That's true, yeah. I've got another shot, and I think it's a course that probably is going to suit me a little better. I hadn't had a heap of experience from long, rough, American-style golf. You know, Australian golf is really different to that, whereas I think Augusta with a lot of short grass and some wider fairways and hopefully firmer greens. Well, they were pretty firm at Wingfoot. That'll hopefully play into my hands a little bit more.
Yeah, because I guess November, difference between April and November, I guess it will be paying firmer. That will be the difference.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I've heard sort of mixed things of what November's like. It'll look cool at least to have some full colours and that. But, I'm not sure how it'll play. I think it'll probably just be weather dependent like it is most times. But, I mean, they've got all the technology in the world to get it how they want it, I'm sure.
What's the plan between now and Augusta then? Are you hoping to maybe get some more competitive reps in and kind of base yourself, you know, in America and sort of set up a bit of a base, or are you going to carry on doing the course design work? What's the schedule look like?
I'm sort of mixing up. So basically these 3 weeks, I've got sort of 6-ish weeks until I get to Augusta. So the first 3 to 4, I'll mostly be in Detroit, sort of working the golf course architecture stuff, learning a bit more of kind of hands-on construction stuff. I think he finishes up in, I think the very end of October, 31st of October is supposed to be where he sort of hands off the keys and it's kind of done. So, that I'll be here for probably 3 weeks more and then head to Florida after that and sort of for some warmer weather because Detroit, Michigan starts getting pretty cold end of October.
Yeah, I bet.
I want to be out of here by then. So down to Florida, Will Davenport, my caddy's down there. So he's just moving into a new apartment. He's finished up business school in Philly. So he's moving down he's from Florida. So he'll be down in sort of Fort Lauderdale. So I'll probably stay with him for about a week. And then we're both going to play the rescheduled Azalea Amateur, the one I was going to play in March. That one's Country Cup of Charleston. So we'll play that. So that'll be something at least competitive. And the field this year there is going to be really, really good because the college season's been cancelled and all those guys are going to be playing it. So I had a look at the field list and it was super impressive. So we'll play that and then probably spend a week. We'll have a week kind of between that and tournament week at the Masters. So I think we're going to go up to Pinehurst and kind of play some golf and prep there.
Nice.
yeah, the USGA's got a base there, and they said they were happy to have me kind of there to practice, and so that'll be a really sweet place to hone the game in the lead up, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, have you been to Pinehurst before?
I actually have. Yeah, I went there last year. I played the North and South Amateur, which is like their big kind of annual amateur event. I was hoping to play that as it was going to be like the preparation for the US Amateur, but I didn't qualify, which was a bit annoying. But still got to play number 2 and number 4, which are probably the two best courses there. And looking forward to getting back there and playing a bit more golf, because it's to me it feels like a bit like St Andrews does in Scotland. It's like home of golf in America.
Didn't Tyler Strafacci, he won the North and South, didn't he? Was that last year?
Yeah, I think he did actually. That's probably a good point. I think he won it. It might have even been this year.
Yeah, did he win this year? Yeah,
I think he might have won it this year. Yeah, he had a pretty good run. Maybe it was last year. I don't know. Anyway, I know he's won it. So it's obviously finds a good player.
Well, mate, you've been very generous with your time as ever. So, yeah, thanks very much for coming on to the pod and giving us such an awesome insight into playing a major championship. And I know I speak for all of our listeners and Sam and Tom, who aren't here, in wishing you the best of luck at Augusta. We're definitely going to be following along closely. But it sounds like you've got a pretty awesome schedule lined up between now and then as well with the coursework. So
thanks a lot, Bruce. And
yeah, best of luck with it all.
Watch this.